All right, welcome to part 4 of the Faux Bois table. So I finished putting on the expanded metal, which cut me. It cut me bad. And so I recommend using garden gloves anytime you're handling this stuff. So I'm at the part where I want to add my first layer of concrete. Now, this is not the layer that you cut all the fancy designs into. This is just one that fills up the plaster lathe and makes it so that it's a true form. So my my tools today: a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket, some kind of container. In this case, a country crock, so that I can measure 1 cup of concrete for every 3 bags of sand, or 3 containers of sand. So it's a ratio. So this is the bucket I'm going to use to do that. A paddle mixer, because let's face it, I don't want to mix this all by hand. You could. I mean, this is like a $5 tool, so it'll save you time and energy. And then I covered the whole table. This 6-foot table, I covered the whole table in plastic, because when I'm finished with all of this, I want to bind those pieces of plastic together over the top so that it will stay moist for the 24-hour period of curing. So it's later in the evening, so I'll finish it up and put a nice, maybe spray it a little bit with some water, pull the plastic up over the top of it, and then tomorrow before I go to work, I'll hit it again with a little water, because the harder or the longer you let this stay semi-moist, the stronger your concrete is, and I want super strong concrete. So that's my plan. All right, so my first step is to measure out my ingredients. I don't know how much water this takes, so part of the experiment this first time around, the maker Jimmy DiResta says you go to school on the first couple of batches. So how many of these water containers will it take to make a nice stiff mix that's still pliant enough to get through the mesh? I don't know. So this first batch, you go to school. By the time I mix up my last batch, I'll have it all figured out. But this is when I do that. It's okay to screw it up, I guess is what I'm saying. I screwed up a little bit. You can always add more concrete and sand if you get your ratio off. You can always make it work. Anyway, so let me mix up a batch of concrete. This is about to get real messy. I do have some nitrile gloves that I'm going to throw on so that I don't get concrete hands. Lime turns your fingers and skin crunchy. You won't like it if you don't have gloves. Maybe this isn't the project for you, because it really does tear them up. All right, so let me get a batch going, and we'll start looking at this. All right, so there's no way you're going to be able to see this, but it's chunky, like peanut butter. This involved 2 containers of Portland cement, 6 containers of sand, and 2 containers of water. So I think I like that ratio. Ask me at the end of the video. Maybe I change it up, but that's what I like right now. It seems like it's consistent. It's fully moisturized, and now it's time to start slopping it around. So I'll do a little bit of that and show you what I got. All right. There was sort of a surprise when sorry, my microphone's off. There was sort of a surprise when I went and started emptying out the bucket. I got halfway through and I saw a bunch of dry stuff. So I was using this paddle mixer, and as you can see, it's broken. My drill sort of beat it up, and I wasn't able to get to the bottom of the bucket. So I switched to this container. I got my garage door open so I can get water. I switched to this container that I use for mixing concrete when it's just a small pour job. So I switched to this, now I can see it, and I added another bucket of water, which I think might have been too much, because it's now super soupy. So I'm gonna give it a couple minutes, see if it sets up a little bit. If not, then I'm gonna have to conjure some kind of plan to change the ratio a little bit. But 2 buckets didn't do it. 3 buckets of water, a little too much. Well, maybe we'll see. Either way, mixing it in a bucket, not a good plan, because there's no way to know if you've saturated all of the concrete. So let that be a lesson to you. Anyway, mixing the concrete I go. Well, Jimmy DeResta was right. On the first one, you really do go to school. The thing that I learned was, one, don't mix it in a bucket unless you have the right tool to get all the way down to the bottom, because that left me in a crisis situation where I had to figure out how else I was going to mix this stuff up after I'd already poured it out onto the plaster lathe. Not ideal, I don't think. Second, too much water, right? The ratio of water needs to be less. I think that I can work with this and make it do what I want it to do. At least I hope so. It does look like the under layer is starting to stiffen up. And then, of course, I didn't get all the edges. Also, I learned those twist ties that I was using, I twisted them and I left the rabbit ears of the twist tie up. So as I was smoothing the concrete out, there were all these rabbit ears poking out. They need to be folded down before you start the concrete work. Anyway, be wiser than me, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to work at this for a little while and see if I can get a better consistency and a more a smoothness that I'm looking for. I don't know, if you do concrete, this probably really ticks you off. All the things I did wrong. Anyway, if you're interested, leave something in the comments about how it works. But either way, this is not the final layer. It's the coat that just ties everything together. And for those purposes, I think we're doing fine. But the next batch that goes on the legs up here, it ain't gonna stick if it's this soupy. So I'll need to fix that. So the second batch that I mix up, it'll be in the black tub, and I'll watch my water ratio a little bit better. So let me do a little bit of tooling, and then I'll be right back with you. So I set the timer, or I set the ratio in this batch that I put in the legs. I decided to go with a smaller batch. So I did 1 part Portland cement, 3 parts sand. My first batch was 2 parts Portland cement, 6 parts sand, so I basically doubled the recipe. I decided that was too unwieldy. That was too much concrete at one time to try to handle before knowing what would happen. So I cut it back, and then I for the water I used 1 whole container and then 1/3 of a container. And the consistency's not bad. I think it's still a little softer than I want. It makes me happy that it's staying in that mesh, because I think the first batch I mixed, there's no way it would have stayed in the mesh. It's a good thing I have a plastic covered table to sort of hold it in position, because otherwise I think that stuff would have just gone crazy. Anyway, so my next batch, I'm going to do 1 batch Portland cement, 3 parts sand, and then I think I'll do 1 and maybe 1/4, maybe 1 1/4, 1 1/8 of water container, and see if I can get it just a little thicker, because I just need it thick enough that it's staying in. I guess I sort of like how it's turning out. It's peanut butter-like consistency almost, and that's what I hear is supposed to work. So I'm not completely disappointed. So anyway, the next batch I mix up, I'll I'll bring you along. Now this video is getting long, so part 3, I think we're wrapping. I will finish the legs in part 4. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.